On this Sunday night, High Seas Treaty, the historic and high-stakes deal to safeguard international waters.
The ship has reached the shore.
Plus, global warming and national security, the dire warning from Canada's spy agency. A wave of suspected schoolgirl poisonings sparks widespread protests in Iran. Who could be responsible and why? To roam or not to roam?
Corporations are using inflation as an excuse to pass on higher prices.
The data roaming decision and price rise dropping this week. And the dream come true for a Toronto 9-year-old spinning her way to success.
Global National with Farah Nasser.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with a moment more than 15 years in the making. After years of negotiations, nearly 200 nations have made history, signing the High Seas Treaty. It's a legally binding pact to protect international oceans. The framework aims to place 30% of the global ocean under protection by 2030. Right now, only 1.2% of the ocean is protected. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight on a deal being called world-changing.
Way out to sea, away from civilization, there is often little or no protection for marine life. But that may soon change.
The ship has reached the shore.
A rare moment of international consensus, nations agreeing on the landmark text of a high seas treaty. Some Canadian environmental groups were among those observing at the United Nations headquarters following years of negotiations.
I did shed some tears, as did many people in the room. It's powerful when the world comes together to agree to do something that we need to do, which is really act more quickly on protecting biodiversity.
The high seas are waters beyond national economic zones. Currently, just 1% of these seas are protected. The treaty aims to increase that to 30% by 2030, including areas like the so-called Lost City in the mid-Atlantic.
It's got unique hydrothermal vents, boiling waters, very unusual species, and right now it's unprotected and of interest, potentially to deep sea mining.
Any mining in the high seas would be subject to stricter environmental assessments. The treaty also aims to control the effects of shipping and overfishing.
What we see is this increased activity on the ocean, including in international waters. And it's becoming very intense, and the impacts are being felt very far from shore and very deep.
As ever, one of the main sticking points was money. Poorer nations wanted to prevent richer countries from hoarding the profits from any medical or scientific discoveries in the high seas. At least 60 national governments must now legally ratify the treaty. Developing countries will get legal aid to help make that happen.
We'd like to see Canada step up to the plate and put some money there. I think that's going to be really important.
After ratification, the real hard work of implementing the treaty begins. Conservationists say that can't come soon enough. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
And there's a stark warning about climate change from Canada's spy service. CSIS says climate change poses a profound, ongoing threat to national security and prosperity. The newly released analysis from 2021 obtained by the Canadian press spells out several concerns. It warns the Arctic's receding ice coverage will allow for routine navigation of the Northwest Passage and the extraction of resources. And this could increase the risk of Russian military activity and a growing Chinese presence in the area. The brief also foresees an increase in violent extremism from people who want to speed up climate change solutions. There have been more avalanches in BC backcountry following last week's deadly slide near Invermere that killed 3 German nationals during a heli-skiing trip. Yesterday, 3 more avalanches came down near Pemberton, north of Vancouver, trapping 2 skiers in separate slides. Each person was dug out by their respective ski partners before being airlifted to hospital, suffering severe injuries. And those series of slides follow what's been an extremely active and deadly avalanche season in BC. 12 people have been killed this year alone in the province. The latest deadly avalanche was last Wednesday in Invermere, which claimed the lives of 3 German tourists. There was another battle over transgender rights in Calgary this weekend, with two opposing rallies over drag events. Hundreds showed up to stand in solidarity with transgender people while celebrating drag storytime events at libraries. There were counter-protesters as well, a smaller rally opposing those events and trans people using change rooms, believing they harm children. There are growing concerns as well for historic safe spaces that are meant for members of Canada's LGBTQ+ community. Across the country, places like gay bars or whole villages in many cities are slowly vanishing, especially in the face of gentrification. And as Heather Yourex-West explains, this troubling trend couldn't come at a worse time when the community has been increasingly coming under attack.
Mark Campbell has opened up his bar every afternoon for decades. But soon, the backlot in Calgary may have to go dark for good.
I got a termination of lease back in 1st of November.
This block is up for redevelopment. There's going to be a 20-story condo development they want to build here.
Known as the Cheers of Calgary's gay community, the backlot is one of only 3 LGBTQ2S+ bars left in the city.
Yeah, we've been losing various spaces in Calgary for years. The Boys Town was next door here. D2 Arena was on 17th.
What you're seeing is the processes of what could be described as gentrification, the development of real estate, the development of condos in particular parts of cities.
It's happening in communities across the country. Hanlan's Point Beach on Toronto Island was one of Canada's oldest queer spaces. It's been used as a gathering place for more than 80 years. But its future as a safe space was also recently under threat when the city announced plans to build a nearby concert venue.
Thousands of new people who would be arriving at the space could create opportunities for conflict and discrimination and even violence.
It's a valid fear. With threats against the queer community on the rise, drag events in several North American cities have had to be cancelled or postponed.
We're actually at a time where there's a new right-wing attack upon especially drag performances, but also trans people and queer youth in particular.
It really shows that we still have a long way to go, and so these kinds of places are still needed.
And so communities are fighting to save them. After a public outcry, the City of Toronto this week dropped its plans for the concert venue near Hanlan's Point Beach, a safe space preserved for now in one city, as advocates in another city hope to do the same. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
To Iran next, where a growing number of schoolgirls are falling ill in a mysterious wave of alleged poisonings. The Iranian regime is finally acknowledging samples it had collected are suspicious. It blames hardline Islamist groups opposed to girls' education. But as Touria Izri reports, some believe the regime itself may be to blame.
This scene keeps playing out across Iran. Schoolgirls arriving at hospitals disoriented and struggling to breathe. First, we smelled gas in the classroom, says this student. Then people became dizzy. One by one, they became sick after noxious fumes wafted through the classroom. The so far unexplained illness has hit hundreds of girls in 50 schools throughout the country. It's not clear what substance is making them sick.
We are not 100% is just related to the gas attack or not. Still is under the investigation, as I said, because there's no transparency in the Iran's regime.
The regime initially dismissed the cases when they began in November, and only now is vowing to investigate. The Interior Minister has assigned what he calls a special committee, admitting some of the samples collected are suspicious. Tehran has blamed opponents of girls' education and also the country's enemies, accusing them of inciting panic. But women's rights activists suspect it's an act of retribution from the regime itself.
This is the reality of Islamic Republic against women. And then what's happening recent is that clearly they are taking revenge.
Young women have been at the forefront of anti-government protests sweeping the country. They began after the death of Mahsa Amini, killed in Iranian custody after she was arrested for not wearing her hijab properly. The apparent poisonings have sparked more protests from desperate parents who say they're being silenced. Video posted on social media appears to show Iran's Revolutionary Guard pulling them into a white van.
The Iranian regime is also once again cracking down on citizens demanding their human rights and fundamental freedoms.
The U.S. says more than 500 Iranians have been killed in the crackdown, but human rights organizations believe that number is much higher. In a country where women and girls are coming increasingly under attack. Touria Izri, Global News, Ottawa.
In Ukraine, Russian troops are still trying to encircle the flashpoint city of Bakhmut. So far, Moscow has been unsuccessful in doing that, but Russian forces are slowly closing in. According to Ukraine's military, more than 130 attacks have been repelled in the last day alone. Kyiv says it has managed to fend off fresh waves of Russian assaults, but with most of the city reduced to rubble and with the supply routes narrowing, Ukraine's command has signaled it will likely withdraw rather than risk being surrounded. And what's happening in Ukraine is top of mind for Estonians heading to the poll today to pick that country's next leader. The vote's pitting one of Europe's staunchest supporters of Ukraine against a far-right party. Prime Minister Kaja Kallas has constantly called for fresh sanctions against Moscow and is favored to win a second term. She's being challenged by Estonia's populist opposition party, which is trying to capitalize on anger surrounding rising living costs and also stopping the intake of Ukrainian refugees. Thousands of people are without shelter tonight in southeastern Bangladesh after a massive fire ripped through a crowded Rohingya refugee camp. The fire erupted just before 3 p.m. local time, and it quickly tore through around 2,000 shelters at Cox's Bazar camp, leaving an estimated 12,000 refugees homeless, most of whom escaped persecution in neighboring Myanmar. 35 mosques and 21 learning centers were also destroyed before the fire was put out. There are no reports of any casualties, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation. The new study that could make a big difference in dementia rates. Coming up, the vitamin supplement that may lower your risk. A common vitamin that you probably already have in your medicine cabinet could help prevent dementia. A study done between researchers in Calgary and in the UK showed that taking vitamin D could be part of the solution. As Carolyn Curry de Castillo reports, a national project has been launched to get more insight.
Frank Saunier has been caring for his wife for 4 years. She was diagnosed with dementia. He says it's hard to describe what it's like to watch the person you love change dramatically and know it's not getting any better.
What do you find is most challenging?
I would say managing sadness.
A new study done over the course of 10 years found in those who were taking vitamin D, there was about a 40% lower rate for development of dementia. Researchers also found that the effects were greater in those with normal cognition than in those with mild cognitive impairment, suggesting the earlier you start, the more you can prevent progression.
We have had 20 years of drug failures in dementia, and one of the consistent themes is that we're intervening too late.
Dr. Zainor Ismail at the University of Calgary says vitamin D research on people who already have dementia showed mixed results.
Likely because by the time you have dementia, it's pretty late in the course. And a big issue in the whole field is that we are detecting it too late.
Dr. Ismail is leading the Can Protect project that launched on Wednesday, aimed at getting more insight into the brain as people age. Anyone over 40 can join the online study. Researchers say it will provide invaluable information on which risk factors are the best targets for preventing dementia.
The earlier the better. I always say that dementia prevention starts in childhood and developing a robust brain.
There is currently no cure for dementia, and there are gaps in our knowledge of it.
We know the consequences, but we don't know what the cause was.
Caregivers are encouraged to take part in the Can Protect study.
I think we're a number of years away, but if this is a path, that's good. It's worth contributing to.
U of C researchers say preventing dementia or even delaying its onset is critical, given the growing numbers of people affected. Carolyn Curry de Castillo, Global News.
Ahead, planning a trip, the two telecom companies raising your roaming rates this week. Traveling with your cell phone is about to get more expensive for some Canadians. Both TELUS and Bell have announced price increases for roaming. Starting this week, the daily rate will go up by at least $1. As Sean O'Shea reports, critics say it's another gouge for Canadians who don't have many choices left when it comes to wireless carriers.
Canadians are already used to paying more for mobile phone service than those in many other countries. Now the price is going up for those using phones out of the country.
Corporations are using inflation as an excuse to pass on higher prices.
Both TELUS and Bell are raising daily prices for those who use their phones outside Canada. Not a lot more, about $1 a day starting next week. The companies will soon charge between $13 and $16 a day extra for phone use in the U.S. and other international destinations. This former Bell customer says it's too much.
I absolutely think it's a cash grab. I noticed that when I went down to Florida over Christmas, and I didn't turn my phone on at all. I used my emails through free Wi-Fi.
Consumers in Canada don't have a lot of choice, but we have even less choice when we're abroad.
Bell and TELUS didn't respond to interview requests. But as we stood outside one Toronto Bell store to interview customers, this Bell manager named Jason came up to us, telling us we shouldn't be standing in the public sidewalk, blocking the Bell sign.
I'm not authorizing being recorded right now. I'm not authorizing this.
Don't touch the camera.
Don't put it in my face, please.
I'm standing on the sidewalk, sir. You've come out to talk to us, and we're standing on the sidewalk, sir. What's the problem? Some customers told us they aren't making enough effort to get a better deal.
I'm guilty of that. Just taking what they give me, I take.
Others say they'll get a local phone provider when they travel in future.
Yeah, I would get a SIM card and just use it with my phone that I already have. I would just get a burner and tell people this is my number.
Cheaper choices when high phone prices in this country are getting higher. Sean O'Shea, Global News.
She's a 3-time world record holder, and she's only 9. Next, we're going to speak with a Toronto student who is just getting started with her big dreams. A young girl from Ontario has got plenty to brag about lately after hooping her way to not 1, not 2, but 3 world records. All the practice has paid off for Mamati Vinod, a 9-year-old hula hooper from Mississauga. She was in London earlier this year, where she set records for multiple and pretty difficult hula hoop techniques, landing her a spot in the upcoming book of Guinness World Records. And I'm very pleased to have Mamati join us now. Thanks so much for joining us. First of all, 3 different records. Tell us about these 3 different ones.
All of them I've combined in gymnastics and hula hoop to do it. So my first record was the most hula hoop rotations in the knees while in inline skates. And the second one was most hula hoop rotations while in peacock skill while doing hula hoop in the knees. And the third one was most hula hoop rotations in the ankle while hopping.
I don't even think I could do one of those things once. So congratulations, Mamati. Canada's very proud of you. What was the most difficult one out of the 3, would you say?
The difficult one would be the record with the one that I have to hold peacock skill. So I have to take my leg from the back, and then I had to hold it above my head, and then do a hula hoop in the leg that I'm having on the ground. So I had to make sure I balanced it, not drop it, and make sure my leg is on top of my head.
Okay, I have to know, how did you get started? How does one get started hula hooping?
So when I was 2 years old, my mom and my aunts used to take hula hoop classes. So just for fun, I took a hula hoop in my hands and started trying. And seeing how good I was, I really wanted to go to the next step and on and on. And since I was doing it so well that I thought I could go to the next level and combine gymnastics with it. So when I combined those 2, it was a bit hard, but when I kept practicing, I was really good at it, and it was like my talent. So I thought I needed to do something with my talent, and so I thought of getting records. First, I tried 1, and since that one got approved, I did more and more until now I've reached 6.
Wow. You have 6 world records, all to do with hula hooping, I'm guessing?
Hula hooping and gymnastics, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, some kids will be watching this. I'm going to show this to my own kids, and they're going to say, "Well, she just knows how to do this." Is that all? Is it just talent?
No, it's not like just talent just comes out of nowhere. It's something that you need to keep practicing to achieve.
That's amazing. Okay, what is next for Mamati, Vinod? What's next for you?
My next dream is to participate in the Olympics representing Canada in rhythmic gymnastics.
With the hula hoop, of course. And Mamati, I wish you the best of luck. You might not even need it to reach that next goal. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Oh, just love her confidence. That's Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Farah Nasser, and on behalf of our whole crew here, I want to thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is this beautiful sunrise over St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep emailing us your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Donna will be back with you tomorrow here on the Anchor Desk. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Good night.